Hey friends, tonight we're teleporting to 17th century Moscow, where the Wi-Fi password is no, and the thermostat is permanently set to surprise frostbite. Honestly, you wouldn't last an hour. Most of you would be defeated by breakfast, assuming breakfast doesn't defeat itself by freezing mid-chew. Survival rating, 1 lonely star, and that star just put on a coat. So, before you snuggle in, smash that like button and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy listening to me narrate vegetable-based suspense at 0.5 mph. Drop your city and local time in the comments so I can feel better about talking to strangers in the dark. Dim the lights. Cue the fan for that premium airplane cabin ambience, and let's glide into tonight's tale of one cabbage that became the Beyoncé of Baroque Moscow. Spoiler, there will be brine, bureaucracy, and at least one monk who treats coleslaw like cryptocurrency. If you hear snoring, that's just the pickles meditating. Ready? Let's freeze magnificently together. The frost finds you before you find yourself. You wake on a narrow wooden bench built into the corner of an izba whose logs are older than some countries. Pine sap has crystallized into honey-colored gems between the beams. Every time the hut exhales, the gems creak like tiny doors opening onto winters you've never met. Your blanket is a horsehide still shaped like the horse. Neck end politely tucked under your chin, tail end flopped across your feet so the draft tickles your toes with ghost whiskers. Somewhere outside, a rooster tries to remember the time, gives up, and just shivers instead. Your breath rises in a small personal cloud that hovers overhead like a bored guardian angel. It smells faintly of yesterday's onion, because in Muscovy onion is the national cologne, eau de allium, top notes of repentance, base notes of resilience. You watch the cloud drift toward the single window, a postage stamp of ice blurred by birch smoke and the grease of last summer's flies. Through it, morning arrives the color of tarnished pewter, as if the sun itself is too polite to shine too brightly on a city that hasn't had coffee. Well, hot grain mash. Yet. Beneath you, the bench hoards warmth the way merchants hoard salt, grudgingly. You flex your toes. The horsehide tail twitches in protest. Somewhere under the floorboards, a mouse clears its throat with aristocratic delicacy, offended that you're awake before the bread. You consider apologizing, decide that's absurd, and sit up instead. The motion releases a small avalanche of straw from your shirt. Last night's insulation trick you learned from a grandmother who claimed straw was nature's sweater. She also claimed turnips dream of becoming people, so her credibility hovers around candle level, flickering, fragrant, possibly hallucinogenic. The hearth across the room is a sullen orange eye half closed under ash. A single ember winks at you like it knows a secret, but lost the vocabulary. You shuffle over, knees creaking louder than the logs, and poke the ember with the iron rod that doubles as door latch, back scratcher, and on festive occasions, conversational partner. The ember flares, offended, then settles into a tiny lava lake. You feed it a splinter of pine. The flame accepts the offering with the enthusiasm of a cat receiving a dead mouse. Minimal, but it'll do. Heat leans toward you like a shy dancer. You extend your palms, noticing the lifeline cracked and bleeding in 2 places where the cold has written footnotes. Moscow winters edit human skin the way strict tutors edit homework, in red with disapproval. You blow on your hands. Steam ghosts pirouette off your skin and vanish into the thatch overhead. Somewhere up there, a spider wearing a tiny fur coat applauds with 6 legs. From the shelf, really just a plank respected enough to hold things, You lift the communal wooden spoon. It's the size of a canoe paddle and bears the teeth marks of 3 generations. Next to it sits yesterday's cabbage, a planet of green and violet folds wrapped in the universe's loneliest leaf. One side has gone translucent, where frost kissed it too passionately. The other side still believes it's summer. You pat the cabbage like it's a dog that tried its best, then set it on the table, which is also a plank but promoted. The room's only chair eyes you warily. It's a 3-legged stoic. The 4th leg departed last century for philosophical reasons. You sit anyway, balancing like a meditation master who's accepted wobble as worldview. From this vantage, the Isba shrinks and expands with each flicker of hearth light, walls breathing, shadows stretching like cats after confession. You notice a new crack running from the doorframe toward the icon corner, a hairline fracture pilgrimaging toward the painted eyes of St. Nicholas. The crack is thin enough to be a paper cut in the house's soul, wide enough to let the story in. Outside, the city begins its morning cough. Sled runners squeak over snow. A church bell tolls the hour with the enthusiasm of a man clearing his throat before bad news. Someone yawns loud enough to rattle icicles. You feel the sound through the soles of your feet, a bass note traveling up your bones like rumor. Moscow, you realize, is an instrument strung with sinew and ice, and someone just plucked the lowest string. You stand, bones conducting their own miniature symphony, and open the door. Cold rushes in like it's been training for this moment. Shoulder checks you, proceeds to raid the room for any warmth still hiding. You step aside, polite Canadian style, then remember Canadians won't exist for centuries, and shut the door. The threshold greets you with a drift of snow fine as powdered sugar. It collapses over your felt boots and whispers invitations. Come wander, come wonder. Come lose feeling in extremities you haven't named yet. You accept, because stories don't wait for properly thawed protagonists. Down the narrow lane you crunch, each footstep a small white sigh compacting under wool and leather. Overhead, the sky is a cauldron lid left on too long, iron grey, sagging, occasionally leaking a flake or two of snow like poorly timed seasoning. The buildings lean together for warmth, their eaves whispering gossip about the new family who moved in with actual glass windows. Decadence. Smoke rises in languid columns that spell out Cyrillic curses against the wind. You can't read them, but your nose translates: burnt rye, pine tar, wet horse, yesterday's hope. At the corner, a woman empties a bucket of dishwater that freezes before it lands, creating a tiny glacier of grease and onion skins. She nods. You nod. Both of you pretend the other is adequately dressed. Her scarf is the color of beets, a flag of root vegetable patriotism. She eyes the bulge of cabbage under your coat. Yes, you've brought it along, like a green, leafy security blanket, and her eyebrows rise the exact height of a question she's too polite to ask. You shrug. The cabbage shrugs. The woman retreats into her fortress of logs, probably to report the incident to the onion. You keep walking, past sledges loaded with cordwood and grudges, past a dog whose fur has grown so thick it looks like a mobile footstool with existential concerns. The animal sniffs your cuff, decides you're 40% cabbage, 60% disappointment, and waddles on. Somewhere ahead, Red Square is clearing its throat, preparing to be rectangular and impressive. You aim toward it, drawn by the gravitational pull of history and the faint promise of somewhere warmer than outside your own skin. But first, the river market, a half-frozen rumor of commerce where cabbages are celebrities and salt is paparazzi. You descend the snowy bank, boots testing each step like a balm technician made of icicles. The Moskva River lies below, broad and slow, its surface a shattered mirror reflecting clouds that look like bruised dough. Along the near shore, merchants have chopped rectangular pools in the ice, dipped buckets, and hauled up water that flash freezes into shallow trays for the ice cream of the future, though right now it's just skinny slabs of confused water waiting for someone to invent cones. Stalls made of snow-packed blocks line the frozen beach, their awnings patched from old sails, prayer flags, grandmothers' petticoats, whatever bravado keeps the wind guessing. From one stall rises the smell of rye bread fresh enough to make you believe in indoor heating. From another, the tang of fermenting apples conducting private revolutions in barrels. You drift, cabbage clutched like a ticket to a show you're not sure you want to see. And then you hear it, a murmur, half prayer, half auctioneer's chant. You follow the sound, past a man selling icicles as Moscow popsicles, past a woman knitting mittens from goat hair so raw the mittens still chew cud. There, in a hollow of snow blocks, stands a monk in black robes edged with frost. His beard is a snow shovel, his eyes, two blueberries someone left in the freezer too long. He holds up a cabbage, not yours but a cousin, rotating it slowly so the crowd can admire its symmetry, the way its leaves curl like scrolls containing vegetable scripture. Lot 23, he whispers, voice designed for library corners and deathbeds. One head, no insect pilgrimage, double-layered heart, suitable for tsar or penitent. A ripple runs through the onlookers, fur hats bobbing like buoys in a sea of curiosity. Someone offers a pinch of salt. Someone else counters with a beeswax candle and a promise to pray for the monk's bunions. The monk's eyebrows negotiate. You hug your cabbage tighter, realizing you're holding contraband or destiny or lunch, possibly all three. Behind you, the city continues its slow exhale. Somewhere, a bell tolls the incorrect time on purpose, because time here is more suggestion than contract. Your fingers, despite felt and horsehide, begin their annual transformation into pink glass. You shift weight, snow squeaks, the monk hears. His blueberry eyes swivel, land on the bulge under your coat. He smiles, small and secret, like a man who's just recognized a fellow member of the clandestine order of cruciferous enthusiasts. He nods, you nod. The cabbage, pressed against your ribs, pulses once, probably your heartbeat, possibly not. The auction ends. The monk tucks the winning cabbage into his sleeve as if smuggling a green sun. He turns, robes whispering conspiracies against the snow, and disappears into the crowd. You stand there, exhaling small, cloudy questions that freeze into punctuation marks and drop at your feet. The market resumes its hum, but something has shifted. The air tastes of anticipation and brine, as if the city is quietly fermenting around you. You decide to follow the monk, not in a creepy way, more like a bedtime story that's lost its bookmark and hopes the next page is somewhere near holiness. You trail the faint scent of beeswax and cabbage that lingers in his wake, past stalls selling frozen fish arranged like polite mourners, past a child chasing a runaway turnip that rolls with the confidence of vegetable royalty. Your boots print new ellipses into the snow, dart, 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 maybe, maybe, maybe. Ahead, the Kremlin wall rises, red and stern, a parent who's seen every excuse and invented a few. The monk slips through a postern gate, a black key entering a stone lock. You hesitate. Following a stranger into fortified shadows is how fairy tales earn their ratings, but the cabbage nudges your ribs, impatient. You step through. Inside, the world compresses, walls narrow, sky ribbons into a slit, sound folds into itself like dough. The monk is a moving ink blot 20 paces ahead. You keep that distance, counting heartbeats instead of steps. Torches sputter in iron brackets, throwing light that behaves like drunk moths. Shadows dance the squat, stomping dance of people who have never heard of ballet. Somewhere, incense leaks from a chapel, curling around the cold like perfume on an overcoat. You breathe it in, frankincense, myrrh, and something greener, cabbage perhaps, or hope. The monk turns a corner and vanishes. You arrive at the spot to find only a small wooden door, arched, iron-studded, smelling of grain and secrets. A tiny inscription in Church Slavonic scratches the wood. Enter hungry, leave confused. You consider knocking. The cabbage considers louder. You raise your hand, and the door swings inward on its own, yawning like a bored guardian who's seen this plot before. Beyond lies darkness thick enough to butter bread with. You step inside, because history prefers its visitors brave or foolish, and you're currently auditioning for both. The door closes behind you with the politeness of a librarian shushing a yawn. Darkness folds over you like a duvet made of ink. You wait for your eyes to adjust. They refuse, citing working conditions. So you stand, listening. At first nothing. Then the softest sound, a whisper of robe, a leaf unfurling, maybe a monk giggling. Somewhere ahead, a match flares. The tiny sun reveals a corridor lined with barrels the size of small cottages. Each barrel breathes in, brine out, sigh. You realize you've entered the Kremlin's secret pickle catacombs, where cucumbers spend their afterlife in salty meditation, and cabbages occasionally achieve enlightenment. The monk appears at the edge of the light, face half illumined like a moon indecisive about waxing. He gestures, come. You follow, because options are limited and curiosity is a terrible chaperone. Between barrels, the air tastes of ocean and forest simultaneously, Moscow's version of beach vacation. Your boots whisper across flagstones worn smooth by centuries of furtive feet and dripping brine. The monk stops beside a barrel whose lid is cracked open like a book waiting for its reader. Inside, a cabbage floating serene, pale leaves glowing like parchment held to candle. It is not your cabbage, but it might be its destiny. The monk lifts a ladle, fills it with brine, offers it to you like communion. You sip, cold, sharp, ancient, tastes like winter decided to write memoirs in your mouth. Your eyes water, the monk smiles. Then he speaks, voice softer than snow landing on fur. One leaf can feed a soul, one head can feed a city, one story can feed the night. You wait for the punchline. Instead, he lowers the ladle, bows, and retreats into shadow. The match dies, darkness returns, now smelling of prophecy and pickle. You stand there, cabbage against ribs, wondering if you've just been ordained into an obscure vegetable cult or simply offered a midnight snack. Somewhere overhead, a bell tolls once, low, deliberate, like a full stop at the end of a very long sentence. You take it as your cue to leave. The door mercifully opens when you breathe on it, polite as ever. You step back into the torch-lit corridor, retrace your steps, re-emerge into the cold courtyard where snow is falling in lazy, oversized flakes like torn manuscript pages. The monk is gone. The city continues. You breathe out a cloud shaped like a question mark and watch it drift toward the onion domes, seeking answers or maybe just warmer air. Your cabbage pulses again, softer now, as if settling into its role as protagonist. You tuck it safe, turn your collar to the wind, and begin the slow walk home through streets that taste faintly of brine and miracle. Behind you, the Kremlin keeps its secrets in barrels. Ahead, the Izba waits with cooling embers and the promise of straw. You walk the thin line between them, each step writing tonight's chapter in crunchy Morse code. Somewhere, a dog footstool barks once, probably at the moon, possibly at the future. You nod in solidarity. The night nods back. The story has your attention now, curled like a leaf around your ribs. It will unfold slowly, fermenting in the dark. You emerge from the Kremlin's shadow gate with the monk's brine still fizzing on your tongue like a dull, ancient Alka-Seltzer. The cabbage under your coat has gone quiet, too quiet, like a child who has just learned the shape of trouble. Snow keeps falling in lazy, half-hearted flakes, the sky's equivalent of shrugging. You decide the safest place to look inconspicuous is the salt line outside the Granovittae Palace, because nothing says, "I absolutely belong here," like queuing for government condiments. The line is a human rope of fur hats, each one drooping under its own weight of frost. People shuffle forward in slow motion, boots scuffing a tempo that would make a snail tap its watch. You join the end, doing your best to project the bored confidence of someone who has definitely not spent the evening tasting contraband, cruciferous communion. A babushka ahead of you turns, eyes sharp enough to dice pickles, and sniffs. You sniff back, Muscovite small talk, then realize she's smelling the brine ghost on your breath. You exhale upward, trying to waft the evidence toward the moon. The moon declines and sends it back with interest. Salt rations arrive in an oaken barrel the size of a carriage, escorted by two guards whose mustaches look like they've been drawn by a cartoonist with a grudge. The clerk is a man whose face has settled into the permanent expression of someone asked to divide 0 by 0. He doles out salt by the pinch, weighing each one on a brass scale so finicky it quivers when someone thinks too hard. When your turn comes, you open your pouch. The cabbage shifts, rustling like a secret turning over in its sleep. The clerk's eyebrow twitches. He's heard every excuse, including "my goat ate my ruble," but my cabbage is restless, is fresh. You opt for silence, accept your pinch, and retreat before the eyebrow can file a report. Behind the palace, you spot a smaller door cracked open, leaking lamplight and the smell of dill. Curiosity pays better wages than caution tonight, so you duck inside and find yourself in a storeroom lined with barrels taller than your future. A monk, different robe, same snow shovel beard, is ladling brine over cucumbers that glisten like emerald submarines. He notices you the way a cat notices a cucumber, slow, judgmental, prepared for nonsense. You raise your pouch of salt in greeting. He raises a ladle in truce. Words feel excessive, so you both stand there, marinating in the moment. Eventually, he jerks his chin toward the farthest barrel. You approach, lift the lid, and discover a foreign spy wedged inside up to his armpits, looking like a very confused salad. His mustache is impossibly waxed, a defiant little surfboard riding the waves of brine. He winks, as if pickle barrel concealment is simply Tuesday, and whispers, "Salutations, comrade of leafy fortune." His Russian is fluent, but each syllable arrives wearing a tiny French beret. You ask, because apparently you're conversing with Produce now, what crime against vegetables landed him here. He sighs, sending a ripple of dill across the surface. I suggested to the Tsar's chef that cucumbers possess Latin declensions. The chef suggested I possess a barrel. Fair. The monk curator listens, unmoved, as if spies in brine are standard inventory. He produces a crust of black bread, tears it in 3, 1 piece for you, 1 for the spy, 1 for the barrel, because even pickles appreciate theater. You chew. The bread tastes of smoke, rye, and the faint melancholy of something that once dreamed of becoming beer. The spy hums a Marseillaise that sounds suspiciously like a lullaby. Cucumbers sway in time, a silent choir of gherkins. You feel oddly included, as if you've been admitted to the world's most aromatic secret society. Before leaving, the spy presses a single peppercorn into your palm. "For luck," he says, "or borscht, whichever finds you first." You pocket the peppercorn, nod thanks, and back away before the monk decides you're next in the brine lineup. Outside, the line for salt has dissolved into general Muscovite chaos, sledges skidding, children sledding, a courier chasing a runaway seal like it's a Friday deadline. You blend into the swirl, cabbage quiet again, peppercorn clinking against your pinch of salt like the world's smallest maraca. Snow begins to fall in earnest now, flakes the size of communion wafers drifting down to absolve the city of yesterday's sins. You stick out your tongue, a flake lands, tastes of nothing, Moscow's way of saying mystery sold separately. The cathedral bells start up, slow and heavy, each toll a sonic loaf of bread landing on the city's table. Somewhere between the sixth and seventh clang, you realize you're humming the Marseillaise too, only your version has been translated into onion. A passerby glares. You switch to a psalm, but the psalm keeps rhyming with dill, and you give up. You head toward Red Square because geometry feels reassuring. 4 sides, 8 towers, one famously rectangular sense of order. Onion domes rise ahead like oversized bulbs that forgot to become traffic lights. Up close, they're even more vegetable, gold, green, blue, all wearing fresh snow like Parmesan shavings. You tilt your neck until the domes line up with the clouds, and suddenly the city is a stew again. Sky the broth, domes the floating onions, you the errant crouton wondering how long before absorption. A small boy bumps into you, offers a snowball in exchange for a story. You decline. He throws it anyway, hits the cabbage, apologizes to the cabbage, runs off. Even children respect hierarchy here. Inside the square, the crowd is thinning into twilight purple. Stalls fold like tired origami. Merchants count coins that clink with the confidence of metal that knows it will freeze before morning. You wander toward the center platform where tomorrow's executions will entertain the masses, but tonight it's just a stage waiting for a play about vegetables. You sit on the bottom step, pull your coat tighter, and feel the peppercorn roll against your ribs. The cabbage shifts, perhaps sensing its peppery future, perhaps just rearranging metaphors. Snow continues, slower now, as if the sky is running out of manuscript. Your eyelids start their own gentle descent, weighted by brine, bells, and the lingering taste of communion bread. You imagine the monk somewhere nearby, ladling eternity into barrels, occasionally tasting to check if salvation needs more dill. You imagine the spy, still submerged, conjugating Latin verbs in a pickle accent. You imagine the cabbage telling the peppercorn a bedtime story about warm soil and summer rain, and the peppercorn replying with tales of distant Kerala breezes. The conversation is soft, multilingual, and entirely imaginary, perfect qualifications for a lullaby. A final bell tolls, long and low, like a mother calling everyone in for dinner. The square answers with silence, snow, and the faint smell of vinegar drifting from the palace kitchens. You stand, knees reminding you they've been leased on medieval terms, and start the trudge home. Behind you, the domes hover like guardian balloons. Ahead, the Isba waits with dying embers and the promise of straw. Between them, You walk the thin line of a story still fermenting, each footprint a tiny pickle jar sealing itself against the night. The square fades to a hush behind you, snow filling your footprints like a polite censor. You angle toward the Kremlin's cathedral row, bells swinging lazily above like overweight pendulums trying to lose calories by rumbling. Their bronze voices tumble down, bounce off your shoulders, and roll away as if late for rehearsal somewhere in the 18th century. You catch yourself counting the tolls. 9, 10, 11. Then lose track because the cabbage decides to audition as a metronome, thumping your ribs in 3/4 time. Apparently we're waltzing now. Up close, the domes refuse to behave like architecture. They bulge, shimmer, then settle into perfect onion silhouettes, only onions that have been reading theology and moisturizing with gold leaf. You tilt your head so far back your hat tries to defect, landing with a soft plop in the snow. A nearby sentry smirks, which is the closest thing Moscow offers to a standing ovation. You retrieve the hat, knock off the decorative snow, and discover the cabbage has poked a leaf through your coat buttonhole like a green flag claiming new territory. Subtle it is not. Between the cathedrals runs a narrow lane nicknamed Sober Alley because drunks emerge at the far end mysteriously converted, smelling of incense and self-reflection. You slip into it, hoping for a shortcut back to your side of the frozen river. The walls here are stone older than grammar, each block a mute witness to coronations, assassinations, and at least one czar who tried to outlaw bad weather. Frost has painted them with white lace so delicate it looks like the walls are wearing grandma's curtains. You trail a glove along the surface. The stone sucks heat through wool, reminding you that history's handshake is never room temperature. Halfway along, a side door cracks open, leaking lamplight and a chord of choral voices. Curiosity, your least responsible chaperone, pulls you inside. You find yourself in a vestibule stacked with brass candle boxes, and the faint, papery smell of 1,000 years of incense doing laundry in the air. Through an arch, a choir rehearses, bass notes tumble like slow boulders, tenors dart between them like swallows that have misplaced the south. The melody is mournful enough to make even the candles weep wax tears. You stand hypnotized, cabbage swaying slightly, possibly humming alto. A deacon notices you, glides over with the frictionless calm of someone who has never needed to run for a bus. He eyes the leafy protrusion from your coat, raises one eyebrow into a perfect circumflex, and whispers, delivering garnish to the Almighty. You shrug, which in any language translates to "it's a long story involving monks and brine." He nods as if that's the most reasonable sentence uttered within these walls all week, then beckons. You follow, because when a man dressed like a jeweled penguin gestures, politeness outweighs prudence. He leads you behind the iconostases, a wall of saints painted with enough gold to fund a small crusade. Here, the air is warmer, thick with beeswax and the faint metallic tang of censers that have been swinging since Ivan the Terrible's mood swing years. The deacon produces a tiny silver scissors, snips off the rebellious leaf poking from your buttonhole, and presses it between the pages of an enormous liturgical book. "For the prologue," he explains, though you're unsure whether he means scripture or soup. Then he blesses you with 2 fingers, the orthodox version of a Wi-Fi handshake, and glides back to the choir, robe whispering conspiracies against the stone. You retreat the way you came, minus 1 leaf, feeling oddly lighter, as though a single cabbage page has been edited out of your autobiography. Back in Sober Alley, the cold regroups, slapping cheeks to remind you that divine warmth is strictly a limited-time offer. Night has fully arrived, wearing moonlight like a shawl that's slipped off one shoulder. Stars glitter, small and indifferent. The universe's way of saying, cool story, bro, but we've seen bigger produce. You pick your way down the lane, boots squeaking the same two-note complaint they've harped on since November. At the far end, you emerge onto the riverbank, the Moskva spread wide, black, and pretending to be asleep. Torches on the near pier throw orange smears across the ice, turning sled tracks into glowing runes. A lone cart creaks past, driver hunched so low he looks like a question mark delivering itself. You follow his ruts onto the frozen river because the shortest distance between two mysteries is a straight line across questionable ice. Halfway across, you pause. Wind skitters snow across the surface like white mice in a hurry. Beneath your soles, the river exhales a low, metallic groan, winter's version of a teenager asked to do chores. Somewhere under the ice, water still moves, slow and ancient, remembering ships, swimmers, and the occasional unfortunate czarist cousin. You wonder if it also remembers the monk's brine, the spy's peppercorn, the deacon's stolen leaf. Probably. Rivers are the original gossip columnists. A crack zigzags nearby, thin as pencil lead, loud as gossip. You step over it carefully, cradling the cabbage like a green, leafy heart that started to palpitate. For a moment, the city falls silent. No bells, no sleds, no distant snores from pickled spies. Just you, the ice, and a sky so clear you can hear the stars creak in their sockets. The moment stretches, elastic and fragile, until your own heartbeat fills it, thumping in sync with the cabbage's rustle. Two percussionists, one concerto, zero audience. On the far bank, lamps from the Izba windows flicker a welcome, tiny, hesitant yellow eyes blinking against the blue dark. You angle toward them, boots finding new snow that hasn't yet been insulted by footprints. Each step writes a fresh line in Cyrillic you can't read but somehow understand. Almost home, almost soup, almost story enough for one night. The wind decides to help with exposition, whispering that tomorrow there will be trials, treason, and possibly borscht. But for now you get to walk across a frozen river holding the world's most famous vegetable and pretending that's perfectly normal. Behind you, the cathedral domes hover like golden balloons that lost their strings centuries ago and decided to become sky instead. Ahead, the Izba door waits, promising the modest miracle of warmth that smells slightly of horse, onion, and impending plot. You quicken your pace, cabbage riding shotgun, peppercorn rattling backup percussion in your pocket. The river gives one last groan of approval, or warning, or maybe it's just clearing its throat before the next chapter. You don't look back. Stories hate being watched while they change their clothes. You step off the river with the cautious pride of someone who just walked across a liquid that hasn't decided whether it's a street or a scandal. The bank crunches underfoot. Snow over gravel over Muscovy's eternal mud, all three frozen into a layered casserole nobody asked for. Ahead, the alley tightens into a tunnel of log walls, each beam bowed under the weight of its own life story. Somewhere overhead, a clothesline snaps in the wind, wooden pegs clacking like castanets auditioning for a flamenco only they can hear. You duck the line, save your hat this time, and proceed toward the rumor of warmth leaking from your Izba's chimney. But the cabbage has other travel plans. It shifts, leaves rustling in distinct Morse, ... which roughly translates to "we're being followed." You glance back. Nothing except snow rearranging itself into artistic excuses. Then, Movement, a shadow detaching from a doorway, tall, fur-wrapped, moving with the subtlety of a wardrobe trying to tiptoe. You speed up, the shadow speeds up. You slow, it slows. Great, you've gained a tail that hasn't even bought you dinner. At the next corner you pivot hard, press yourself against a wall colder than a tax collector's heart, and wait. The shadow arrives, panting steam like a kettle with existential issues. It resolves into a boy, maybe 14, face 80% cheekbones, coat 20% patches. He sees you, startles, and produces your missing hat. The one you lost 10 minutes ago. He offers it like a peace treaty written in wool. Apparently you dropped it. He followed to return it, and Moscow's night lighting turned honesty into espionage. You accept the hat, repay him with the only currency you own, a single outer leaf of cabbage. His eyes widen as if you've handed him the moon wearing green eyeliner. He scampers off, leaf flapping like a tiny victory flag. Problem solved, karma mildly pickled. Finally, the Isba door. You push, it groans, hinge language for about time. Inside, the hearth has dimmed to a single lava orange eye, but compared to the outside world it's a beach vacation. You stamp snow off your boots, add a pine splinter, coax the eye into a squint, then into a wink, then into actual flame. Shadows stretch, yawn, and resume their usual jobs as unpaid interior decorators. The cabbage gets its own chair, three-legged, like everything else here, but honored by the promotion. You sit opposite, unwrap your coat, and discover the peppercorn has escaped your pocket and nested inside your scarf like a microscopic chicken. You relocate it to the table plank, where it rolls to a stop against the cabbage. Two refugees from different plot lines, now sharing unemployment. From the rafters, the house mouse appears, tiny fur coat impeccable despite the economy. She sniffs the air, calculates the peppercorn is roughly the size of her winter yacht, and claims it by sitting on it. You decide not to argue. Everyone needs retirement planning. While she guards her new ride, you rummage the shelf for supper options, dried mushroom, frozen onion, a heel of bread harder than some historical facts. You consider adding cabbage, but tonight the vegetable is celebrity, not ingredient. Instead, you drop the mushroom into yesterday's water, now conveniently located halfway to ice soup. Gourmet it ain't, but it steams, and steam is basically a domesticated cloud come to visit. While the cloud does its aromatic rounds, you inventory the evening's loot, one pinch imperial salt, one peppercorn now under new management, one leaf lighter thanks to a choir boy with archival tendencies, and one cabbage that may or may not be rehearsing for a coronation. Not bad for a Tuesday that doesn't know it's a Tuesday. You taste the broth. It tastes like winter's memoir, earthy, bleak, with a surprise ending of almost. You add the tiniest grain of salt, because if you can't improve the plot, you can at least season the subplot. Outside, wind tests the door latch like a drunk testing punchlines. Inside, the mouse rotates her peppercorn steering wheel and sets sail across the table, leaving tiny paw print morse that probably says, "Nice place, no anchovies." You watch, absurdly soothed, until your own eyelids start rowing in sync. Bed beckons, a straw mat that has compressed into the topography of every previous sleepless night. You consider bringing the cabbage along for warmth, decide that crosses some line between protagonist and pillow, and leave it in the chair with the mouse as night watch. They seem to reach an understanding. Vegetable provides bulk, rodent provides security. Both agree the peppercorn is communal property. You bank the fire, because dying of smoke inhalation was last season's fashion. Embers settle into a slow red wink that matches your heartbeat's newly lazy tempo. The last thing you hear is the soft scrape of mouse yacht against wood, a nautical lullaby for the domestically landlocked. Somewhere between that and the wind's off-key harmonica, sleep arrives. Wearing a hood of straw, carrying a tiny green flag, whispering that tomorrow there will be trials, treason, and possibly soup. But tonight you've earned the deep freeze of peace. When morning finally clocks in, it arrives as a dim blue rumor seeping through every crack in the isba like chilled ink. You surface from sleep slowly, like a dumpling deciding whether it wants to float. The straw mat has tattooed its weave across your cheek. The horsehide blanket smells of stable nostalgia and distant onion. Somewhere overhead the mouse is already commuting. Peppercorn yacht repurposed into breakfast table, tiny squeaks announcing the start of another capitalist rodent day. You sit up, spine composing a three-part creak of its own, and check on your co-star. The cabbage sits serenely in its chair, outer leaves now fashionably rumpled. Muscovite haute couture for vegetables. The hearth offers one sulky coal winking in a bed of ash. You sweet-talk it with birch shavings until it remembers ambition and blossoms into actual flame. While the kettle, a dented helmet somebody demoted from warfare to beverages, grumbles over the heat, you review today's agenda. 1. Survive. 2. Avoid treason charges. 3. Decide whether celebrity cabbage needs its own bodyguard. Priority 1 feels manageable. The others, negotiable. You break the fast with yesterday's mushroom broth reheated and a heel of bread you must gnaw into submission. The mouse watches like a strict diet coach, ready to confiscate crumbs as docking fees. While you chew, the door rattles, 3 precise taps, unmistakably human. Through the frost-blurred window you see no one, just swirling snow auditioning for a ghost role. You open anyway, because suspense is rude to leave waiting. On the threshold, a parcel the size of a generous sandwich, wrapped in linen and wearing yesterday's snow like powdered sugar. No footprints. Either the delivery service employs angels or Muscovites have finally mastered teleportation. You bring the parcel indoors, unwrap it beside the fire. Inside, a single perfect cabbage leaf, your missing leaf, snipped in the cathedral last night, plus a note inked in Church Slavonic shorthand. You can't read it, but the illuminated doodle of a tiny church with a pickle for a spire translates pretty well. Bring the head. Dawn tomorrow, side door of St. Basil's. Come alone, or the soup gets it. So the cabbage has been invited to its own after-party. You look at it. It looks back. If vegetables could arch an eyebrow, this one would be halfway to the moon. You consider options. A. Flee south and spend your life telling overly seasoned bedtime stories. B. Obey the summons and find out why a building needs a cabbage more than you do. C. Stay in bed and hope the plot forgets you. The kettle whistles, sounding remarkably like a small, impatient alarm clock. Option B wins, because curiosity pays in narrative and you're already overdrawn. Preparation begins. You tear a strip from the linen, fashion a sling so the cabbage can ride against your chest, infant style, freeing both hands for potential swashbuckling, or at least aggressive shivering. The mouse donates a strand of her tail fur for decoration. Payment is 1 bread crumb and naming rights. She now insists on Commodore Pepper. Deal. You tuck the peppercorn into your pouch for moral support and potential seasoning-based bribery. Finally, you bank the fire, apologize to the ISBA for temporary abandonment, and step outside into a city holding its breath like an audience waiting for the overture. Moscow at pre-dawn is a charcoal sketch, every roofline inked in soot and silver, every chimney coughing small, hesitant plumes. Sled runners in the distance make the city's only conversation, a soft shush-shush, like someone politely erasing mistakes. You follow the main drift toward Red Square, boots punching fresh ellipses into the snow. The cabbage rides warm against your ribs, occasionally rustling as if turning pages of an invisible script. Somewhere a bell tolls once, an early bird monk practicing solitary applause. The sound lands on your shoulders, light but propulsive. Go, find out, taste what happens next. At the edge of the square you pause. St. Basil's stands ahead, candied and candle-lit, looking less like a cathedral and more like a birthday cake that got ambitious about architecture. Its 9 towers wear swirl tops of every color, turquoise, strawberry, buttercream gold. Each dome a different flavor of frozen sherbet. You approach the side door, a modest arch tucked between 2 towers that seem to be gossiping in icing. No guards, no pilgrims, just the faint smell of beeswax and the echo of your own heartbeat bouncing off technicolor walls. You raise your hand to knock. The door sighs open before knuckles meet wood, obviously familiar with dramatic timing. Inside, a narrow spiral staircase winding downward, candle stubs marching along the wall like reluctant fireflies. You descend, cabbage pressed close, each step a soft drumbeat on stone older than your last name. At the bottom, another door, this one warm to the touch, leaking the aroma of simmering onions and something sweet, almost celestial. You push through and enter a kitchen vast enough to garage a sleigh, maybe 2. Copper pots hang like planets. A fire roars in a hearth you could park a small isba inside. At the center stands a table big enough for treason or Thanksgiving, currently hosting a single wooden bowl and a monk. You guessed it. Snow shovel beard now tucked into an apron that reads "Kiss the cook," or at least venerate respectfully. He looks up, eyes 2 kindly blueberries, and gestures bring forth the head. You unwrap the cabbage like a midwife presenting royalty. The monk accepts it with the gravity of a man holding a fragile solar system, sets it gently in the bowl. Then he speaks, voice soft as steam. 1 leaf for the soup, 1 soul for the city, 1 witness for the night. He lops off the topmost leaf, your leaf returned home, and drops it into a simmering cauldron that immediately releases a chord of fragrance so complex it must have minored in music theory. The rest of the cabbage he cradles, murmuring a blessing you don't understand but feel in your stomach, like gratitude, like hunger, like the moment before applause. He gestures for you to sit on a stool by the fire. You obey, because when soup writes the script, you follow stage directions. While the pot burbles, the monk produces 2 wooden spoons, hands you one, and begins to ladle. The broth is clear yet tastes like sunrise over wheat fields, like forgiveness distilled into liquid. You sip. Warmth travels outward until even memories feel toasted. No words pass, just steam, swallow, sigh. Outside, dawn finally cracks the horizon, a thin gold thread pulling the city awake. Inside, you and the monk finish the bowl in ceremonial silence, cabbage essence now part of your bloodstream, your narrative, your newly seasoned soul. When the last drop is gone, he sets the empty bowl upside down on the table, apparently soup's version of a curtain call, then wraps the remaining cabbage in fresh linen and hands it back. "Keep it," he whispers. "The story isn't finished and neither are you." He offers a final blessing, this one accompanied by the faintest scent of pickle, and points toward a side corridor that definitely wasn't there 5 minutes ago. You walk, spoon still in hand, following a corridor that smells of incense and distant summer. Behind you, the cauldron sighs, content. Ahead, light blooms like a vegetable remembering it was once a flower. The corridor unfurls like a scroll someone forgot to stop writing, stone giving way to timber, torches replaced by skinny candles that bow as you pass, tiny parishioners in wax cassocks. You still hold the wooden spoon. Dropping it feels rude, like walking out before the encore, so you pocket it next to the peppercorn. Commodore Pepper would approve of naval souvenirs. The cabbage rides shotgun, linen crinkling with every step, sounding suspiciously like pages turning. Somewhere ahead, daylight leaks in, pale, carrot-colored, promising either sunrise or a giant stew pot on the boil. You emerge through a low wicket gate into a side yard blanketed by untouched snow. Footprint purity lasts 3 seconds. Your boots punch 2 neat holes, signature of humanity's inability to leave nice things alone. Ahead lies a small chapel the size of a wealthy man's ego, domes scaled accordingly. Onion meets shallot. Smoke oozes from its chimney in lazy spirals, each coil smelling of beeswax and something sweeter, almost citrus. You approach because warm air is democracy, and you're currently a one-vote nation. Inside, icons glow like embers under their gilt coats. A single priest, beard-level wizard, inches a censer back and forth, painting the air with frankincense clouds that immediately try to convert your lungs. You cough politely. Incense takes the hint and backs off. The priest notices the linen bundle under your arm, nods as though cabbage deliveries are standard liturgy, and points toward a side table where a bowl of water waits, steam curling like a question mark. You realize he wants the vegetable. Baptism, last rites, soup encore, you hand it over. He immerses the cabbage 3 times, dip, swivel, drip, murmuring church Slavonic that bubbles the water like gentle soda. The cabbage emerges glistening, sanctified, and somehow plumper. Either it's holier or it's absorbed free refills. Priest returns it, signs the cross over both of you, 2 for 1 special, then resumes sensing, job done. No invoice, no receipt, just the smell of citrus rind and mystery. You exit lighter, though you haven't lost weight. Maybe sin is heavier than brine. Outside, the sun has fully clocked in, laying gold coins on the snow you're happy to collect. Somewhere downhill, Moscow begins its daily throat-clearing, sledges creak, vendors shout, ice crackles like a knuckle convention. You descend toward the noise, newly blessed cabbage in tow, wondering what happens when produce achieves sainthood. The answer waits at the bottom of the slope in the form of a public stocks. Wooden frames currently empty, snow sitting on the crossbeam like frosting on a very bad dessert. A small crowd has gathered anyway. Muscovites treat empty stocks like open mic night. Today's performer, a lone turnip, center stage, accused of impersonating royalty. Apparently someone carved a tiny crown from birch bark and wedged it onto the vegetable. The bailiff, a man whose mustache could shelter poultry, reads the charge, false vegetablage with intent to cause soup confusion. Penalty, public mocking until dinner. Crowd participation is enthusiastic. A child flips the turnip the bird. Historians will later label this early performance art. An old woman suggests boiling for treason. A teenager wants to pardon it because monarchy is passé. You stand at the back, cabbage pressed safely to chest, feeling vaguely guilty for leafy privilege. The bailiff spots your bundle, eyes narrow. Royal cabbage, escaped evidence. He strides over, boots spraying snow like disgruntled champagne. Panic flares. You consider sprinting, but the river already proved you're not Olympic material on ice. Instead, you do the only sensible thing. Brandish the wooden spoon like a writ of habeas produce. The bailiff halts, confused by cutlery authority. Into the silence you declare, voice surprisingly steady, that your cabbage has been baptized by official clergy and is therefore under ecclesiastical immunity. You wave the spoon for emphasis. Incense still clinging to your coat adds olfactory credibility. The crowd murmurs, miracles, bureaucracy, religion wielded by a man who smells faintly of pickle, Moscow's favorite cocktail. The bailiff's mustache droops, sensing paperwork ahead. He mutters something about vegetable jurisdiction and retreats, officially unbothered but suspicious. The turnip, however, has overheard. It rocks in its little crown, begging rescue. You can't leave a fellow protagonist to be heckled into soup. Stepping forward, you offer the bailiff a deal, 1 peppercorn, international currency, for the prisoner's release. He scoffs. You up the ante by adding the communal wooden spoon, symbol of kitchen power. Mustache calculates. Peppercorn can be sold. Spoon can stir propaganda stew. Deal. You lift the turnip free. Crown tumbles. Audience applauds. Today's episode of Veggie Court adjourned. Turnip now in pocket, coat now bulging like a produce aisle. You exit the square to the tune of scattered cheers, and one enthusiastic "God save the greens." Behind you, stocks resume empty neutrality, awaiting tomorrow's cucumber criminal. You, meanwhile, have acquired a royal root, a blessed cabbage, and a reputation as the man who cross-examined winter with a spoon. Not bad for mid-morning. On the edge of Red Square, a street orator has set up crate and crowd, topic of the day, "Can vegetables achieve enlightenment?" He gestures wildly with a leek like it's a pointer stick. You try to sidle past, but the crowd sucks you in, apparently your visual aid now. Orator spots your holy cabbage, declares it living proof of vegetal nirvana. Audience ooze. Someone asks your opinion. You mumble that you're still seeking the dressing. Laughter ripples. Coins clink into the orator's hat. Your joke just funded his lunch. He bows, presents you with the leek as honorarium. You accept. Coat now also sporting green flag number 3. Vegetables are accumulating faster than plot points. You decide it's time to exit public life before a beat drafts you into politics. A side street beckons. Narrow, crooked, blessedly empty. Halfway down you notice fresh graffiti carved into a fence plank, a perfect tiny cabbage followed by the words, "The leaf is coming." Propaganda, fan art, or vegetable horoscope? Hard to tell. You run a gloved thumb over the carving, splinters protest, but the symbol stays, claiming history 1 shavings at a time. Somewhere ahead, a kitchen chimney coughs smoke that smells distinctly of nutmeg and intrigue. You follow, because apparently that's your brand now, following aromatic subplots until they ferment. The nutmeg trail tugs you through a maze of back lanes where snowdrifts lean like drunk scholars against the walls. You half expect to trip over a subplot. Instead, you trip over a dog, the same footstool fur model from yesterday. He waddles along beside you now, apparently hired as unpaid intern. Every few steps he glances up. You carry snacks in that coat. 3 vegetables and a peppercorn say yes, so you both march on, a 2-species parade seeking the source of spicy intrigue. It materializes in the form of a low, timber shopfront wedged between 2 larger buildings like a shy kid in a family photo. A signboard creaks overhead. Vanda Dill, Dutch spices and philosophical sundries. Below that, a smaller plaque reads after hours, knock thrice, then once, then apologize. You obey the protocol. The door swings inward, releasing a gust of warmth scented with clove, orange peel, and capitalism. Inside, shelves climb to a ceiling lost in pepper dust haze. Barrels wear chalk labels in 4 languages, all of them flirting. Behind the counter stands a man wearing a felt hat wider than his shoulders, either Dutch or a human umbrella. His beard is braided into 2 slim ropes tied off with cinnamon sticks. Every nod smells like Christmas. He eyes your bulging coat, smiles like a ledger about to balance, and says, "Welcome, Mayan friend. I see you travel with salad royalty." You unload the cabbage onto his counter. The turnip and leek peek out like curious cousins. Dutchman's eyebrows rise so high the cinnamon tassels clack. My, a full delegation. He produces a tiny set of brass scales, weighs the cabbage, whistles in B-flat. Head of state, literally. Where did you steal it? You explain you were merely chaperoning toward destiny. He listens, chin in hand, cinnamon bobbing like a metronome. When you mention the nutmeg aroma outside, he sighs. That would be my midnight apprentice. Too generous with the merchandise, too stingy with the invoices. Apprentice appears from behind a curtain of hanging star anise, the teen who earlier rescued your hat. Small city. He grins, recognizes you, and produces the very peppercorn you donated to the turnip's bale. Return to owner, he declares, placing it on the scale beside the cabbage. Dutchman mutters calculations, scratching figures into a ledger that smells faintly of time. Finally, he looks up. I propose exchange, 1 certified holy cabbage for 1 crate of nutmeg, plus safe passage papers to Riga. The Tsarina craves flavor, I crave profit. You crave. He waits. You realize you don't know what you crave, maybe just the next sentence of the story. Before you can answer, the front door explodes inward. No polite knock this time. In stomp 2 palace guards, mustaches synchronized like twin battering rams. Their eyes scan, land on the cabbage, glow with predatory overtime pay. By order of the Boya Duma, the taller one bellows, all contraband vegetation is seized for the royal table. He reaches, you block. Dutchman counters by slamming a lid on his scale, cabbage now under brass bell jar faster than you can say coleslaw. Guard glares. Hand it over or we confiscate the whole shop, plus your kneecaps. Cinnamon hat raises both palms. Gentlemen, surely we can spice things up. Quick as sleight of hand, he produces 2 pouches, 1 nutmeg, 1 pepper. A tithe for the Tsar, a token for his loyal wolves. Guards weigh pouches, sniff, nod. But short guard eyes the brass dome hiding the cabbage. What's under there? Dutchman smiles. Philosophy, very volatile. He lifts the dome a finger width, a puff of incense, pre-stashed, wafts out, smelling of cathedral and guilt. Guards recoil, religious reflexes still stronger than greed, mutter apologies, beat retreat, pouches vanishing into sleeve pockets like magic tricks gone respectable. Shop door closes. Dutchman exhales, locks it, turns back to you. Philosophy saves the day, but paperwork saves the year. He slides a pre-inked safe passage parchment across the counter, quill poised. Name? You give it, he writes, then stamps with a seal shaped like a clove. And the cabbage? Do we have deal? You hesitate. The vegetable has been your passport, blanket, plot device. Selling it feels like betraying a very quiet friend. On the other hand, you've now got a dog, a turnip, a leek, and a mouse commodore waiting in the wings. Basically a traveling farmer's market with visa issues. You request alternative terms, keep the cabbage, take half the nutmeg crate, and you'll deliver the rest to Tsarina's chef yourself, thus guaranteeing his supply chain and your continued plot relevance. Dutchman twists cinnamon beard, calculating. Half crate, plus you endorse my shop on cathedral doors. Deal. You spit on palm, he spits on palm, spices witness the contract with fragrant indifference. Apprentice loads a small sled with nutmeg jars wrapped in wool. Dog curls on top, claiming supervisory role. You tuck cabbage back into its baby sling, now wearing a necklace of nutmeg for extra bling. The turnip and leek ride shotgun in coat pockets, creating a silhouette that suggests either advanced pregnancy or avant-garde salad. Outside, dusk is tinting the sky the color of beet brine. Your new sled creaks across snow, leaving a trail that smells like Christmas arguing with geography. Destination, Kremlin kitchens, where you'll trade flavor for favor and hopefully avoid becoming garnish. Behind you, Vander Dill dims his lamps, already writing tomorrow's ledger entry. Cabbage, spiritual appreciation. Nutmeg, political lubricant. Ahead, Moscow's towers glitter like misplaced brooches, inviting you to the final act of a play that began with one leaf and is rapidly growing into a whole salad of consequences. You march, nutmeg clinking, vegetables in tow, dog trotting like a furry fiduciary. Somewhere a bell tolls 8, or maybe 9. Time is negotiable when you're escorting produce through Baroque intrigue. The night smells of citrus, clove, and imminent denouement. You breathe it in, adjust cabbage crown, and pick up the pace. Curtains rising, soups brewing, destiny's ladle is finally within reach. Kremlin kitchens hulk ahead, steam billowing from rooftop vents like a dragon on soup duty. 2 iron gates stand guard, each colder than a tax collector's goodbye. You park the nutmeg sled against a snowbank, appoint the dog as temporary treasurer, and approach the wicket. A single sentry, mustache luxurious enough to rent its own room, blocks the beam with a halberd that hasn't seen action since the last ice age. State your flavor, he intones. You produce 1 nutmeg jar, uncork it, let the aroma do the talking. His eyes soften, the halberd droops. Enter spice bearer. Inside, chaos wears aprons. Cooks sprint between hearths big enough to house bears, ladles clanging like unruly cymbals. Saucepans bubble with colors Crayola hasn't named yet. A skinny scribe dashes past clutching a scroll titled Tomorrow's Borscht, Mood Swings and Measurements. You weave through the steam, cabbage pressed to chest, nutmeg necklace clinking like sleigh bells for bureaucrats. At the central hearth stands head chef Yevgraf, built like a cathedral dome, beard tucked into his belt for safety. He's tasting a broth, face contorted in spiritual arithmetic. More salt equals salvation, less salt equals treason. You clear your throat. He glances, registers the holy cabbage, and performs the fastest genuflect you've ever seen from a man holding a ladle. Blessed crucifer, he rumbles, voice echoing off copper parts. We heard prophecy of its arrival. Prophecy, rumor, vegetable group chat, same difference. You present the half-crate nutmeg. Yevgraf inhales, eyes rolling back like slot machines hitting jackpot. He snaps fingers. Underlings appear, unload jars, scurry into formation. A deal is struck. You supply rare spices. Palace grants you imperial condiment courier status. Basically diplomatic immunity plus free soup. He offers a provisional badge, wooden spoon stamped with double-headed eagle. Your original spoon finally meets its upgrade. They exchange respectful nods. But ceremony is brief. Politics barges in. A page arrives waving parchment. By Boyar decree, all exotic produce must be presented to the Tsarina's taster by dawn. Translation: bring the cabbage tonight, or the dungeon gets fresh clientele. Chef whispers that the current taster, Count Raspopov, once declared oatmeal suspiciously oat-y and had the cook flogged. Your appetite for adventure suddenly competes with appetite for survival. Options flicker: 1, flee unlikely, gates already closed for curfew. 2, hide cabbage. Where? Even Mouse Commodore isn't licensed for palace storage. 3, brave the tasting, hope holiness outranks Raspopov's paranoia. You choose door number 3 because plots hate cowards. Chef claps. Relief shakes his domes. He assigns you a corner prep station, issues orders. Clean the cabbage, calm the cabbage, coach the cabbage. Dawn is picky about punctuality. You spend the dark hours trimming outer leaves, each one falling like green parchment history, whispering encouragement. You are herbaceous excellence. You got this. Dog curls under table, snoring in nutmeg-scented circles. Around you, the kitchen subsides into low, burning watchfulness. Fires banked, broths murmuring secrets to themselves. Somewhere a night baker hums lullabies to rising dough. Somewhere else a scribe crosses out cabbage and writes miracle in the ledger, ink still wet. Morning sneaks down the chimney, pale and carrot-colored. Pots resume bubbling, tension reinflates. Chef Yevgraf emerges in a fresh apron starched enough to cut cheese, leads you to the tasting hall, a room gilded enough to blind modesty. At its center, a single table, single chair, single spoon. On the wall, an ornate hourglass flips, starting sand that looks suspiciously like ground saffron. Enter Count Raspopov, tall, thin, uniform so crisp it crackles when he bows. His mustache is waxed into twin exclamation marks warning the world to brace itself. He seats, snaps fingers. Servant presents a silver bowl containing a modest portion of last night's broth. Your broth, sanctified cabbage and all. Raspopov lifts spoon, nostrils flaring like bloodhounds on payday. He sniffs, pauses, eyes narrowing at invisible enemies. The room holds its breath. Even the fire forgets to crackle. He sips. Silence stretches, elastic and lethal. Then, his face softens, eyes moisten, mustache droops from exclamation to gentle question mark. A single tear slides down his cheek and lands in the bowl, adding private salt to public soup. By the saints, he whispers, it tastes like childhood, if childhood had grace. He stands, turns to you, performs deepest bow you've received since the cabbage introduced itself. Courier, he declares, your spice walks hand in hand with mercy. The cabbage is approved, nay, celebrated. Relief floods. You exhale fog thick enough to write victory banners. Chef Yevgraf beams like sunrise on a platter. Badges are upgraded. You now wield a miniature ladle stamped with imperial seal, basically a passport shaped like soup. Raspopov orders the remaining nutmeg distributed to every garrison kitchen in the realm, ensuring morale will smell like Christmas for months. He also insists the cabbage receive an armed escort back to your izba, partly for safety, mostly because even paranoia bows to deliciousness. Outside, dawn ignites the domes into rose gold. The dog awakens, stretches, claims first nutmeg jar as thrown. You load the sled, now accompanied by 2 palace guards whose mustaches have been briefed on vegetable dignity. As you glide away, Count Raspopov salutes with his spoon, voice echoing, "Long live the courier, long live the leaf." Bells across the Kremlin take up the refrain, ringing until snow shivers off eaves. You breathe in cold air spiced with clove and victory, and realize the cabbage has gone quiet, Not empty quiet, but satisfied quiet, the kind that follows a well-told anecdote. Plot, for once, feels contented. Of course, contentment in Moscow is merely the pause a soup takes before it decides to boil over, but you'll take it. For now, you ride toward home, escort clinking, dog trotting, nutmeg perfuming the city's morning breath. Somewhere behind, a chef relaxes. Somewhere ahead, a mouse prepares promotion ceremony for Commodore Pepper. And beneath your coat, the holy cabbage rests, leaves curled like pages that know another chapter is coming. But for this glittering, clove-scented moment, the story decides to let you turn the page yourself. The sled glides home on what feels like victory lubricant, runners humming, guards mustache saluting every passerby, dog riding nutmeg crate like a furry admiral. Snowflakes swirl in slow motion applause. Even the wind has switched from biting to brisk, cheerful. You should be basking, yet a small, persistent voice sounds suspiciously like fermented caution. Whispers, every epilogue in Moscow is just a disguised prologue with better lighting. At the Izba, the royal escort snaps to attention, plants halberds like flagpoles declaring this hut temporarily annexed by flavor. You thank them. They insist on searching the premises for anti-soup insurgents. Find only the mouse, who salutes with her tail. Satisfied, they march off to file paperwork, mustaches departing in synchronized sway. The dog immediately reclaims the stoop as civilian territory, pees on the escort's footprints, diplomatic relations officially reset. Inside, embers still breathe from last night. You bank the sled, unload nutmeg, and discover a sealed scroll tucked between jars. Imperial stationery, wax seal shaped like a double-headed ladle. Message in ornate Cyrillic. By grace of Her Imperial Majesty, the bearer is summoned to present the holy cabbage at tomorrow's Frost Fair, Red Square. Festivities commence at noon. Bring tasting spoons. History will be served. Your signature appears at the bottom, freshly forged by some palace scribe with excellent penmanship and questionable ethics. Refusal option 0, because the parchment doubles as a royal requisition order, basically a parking ticket for your soul. Evening folds in early, sky the color of frozen beet broth. You sit by the hearth, cabbage on knee like green, leafy grandparent, and read the decree aloud. The mouse listens, whiskers twitching at history. Dog gnaws an escort tassel, historical fiber in his diet. You try to feel honored, mostly feel the weight of tomorrow's noon hanging around your neck like an oversized medallion made of ice. Sleep arrives piecemeal. Every creak of snow outside sounds like a dress rehearsal for catastrophe. At some point, you dream of the Frost Fair, stalls carved from ice, skaters shaped like question marks, and a giant soup cauldron into which you're politely invited to dive. You surface, holding only a single bay leaf the size of a cathedral dome. Audience applauds. Tsarina offers you a ladle shaped like a scepter. You wake before accepting, heart tap dancing, dawn peeking through frost-rimmed window like a stage manager whispering, "Places, please." Morning prep feels like packing for prom if prom could end in exile. You brush the cabbage until outer leaves shine like lacquered malachite, then wrap it in fresh linen. Royal baby en route to christening. The mouse contributes a strand of tail fur ribbon. The dog provides moral support by not eating anything important. Nutmeg crate stays home. No one wants imperial chefs thinking you're bribing them with yesterday's wholesale. You pocket the wooden spoon badge, the peppercorn, and a heel of bread for emergency morale, then step into pale sunlight that glitters like chipped glass. Red Square has been transformed overnight. Ice sculptures glimmer along the perimeter, bears, double-headed eagles, a life-size saint. Basil carved from frozen saffron broth, slowly melting and perfuming the air. Skaters loop the square in choreographed ovals, fur coats flapping like flags. Vendors hawk heart mead, roasted chestnuts, and imperial commemorative pickle on a stick. You weave through, cabbage cradled close, feeling every bit the float in someone else's parade. At the center stands a raised platform of pine planks, draped in bunting the color of beets and gold. On it, a table, 2 chairs, and the largest soup cauldron you've ever seen, big enough to boil destiny, or at least baptize a bear. Steam rises in fragrant clouds, carrying notes of dill, garlic, and the faint sweetness of victory. Court officials flutter around, robes swishing like anxious pigeons. One spots you, waves frantically. "Courier!" "Up here, history is hungry." You mount the steps. The crowd hushes, thousands of eyes tracking the linen bundle in your arms as if it's the missing moon. From the opposite staircase ascends the Tsarina herself, small, regal, eyes sharp enough to Julian carrots. She wears sable the color of beef gravy and a smile that's been rehearsed since birth. You bow. She nods. Somewhere a choir begins a low hum, chord chosen specifically to make onions weep. Chef Yevgraf steps forward, ladle raised like a conductor's baton. Into the cauldron he tips the contents of a silver dish. Your cabbage, leaf by leaf, each one landing with a plop that echoes off palace walls. The broth changes color, pale green to warm jade, like jealousy maturing into envy. A second cauldron is produced, this one filled with last night's imperial batch, now crowned by today's edition. Court poet proclaims it soup of unity, broth of empire, and manages to rhyme cabbage with savage without anyone losing a finger. Tsarina lifts a golden spoon, samples, closes eyes for a beat longer than comfortable. When they open, they glisten. "This," she declares, voice carrying to the farthest skater, "is the taste of our shared winters, bitter, bright, and bearable." She turns to you. "Courier, you have seasoned our days with memory. Ask a boon." Options cartwheel through your mind, riches, estate, permanent residency someplace warm where rivers stay liquid. What exits your mouth? May every citizen taste a spoonful, lest history belong only to the well-fed. A gasp ripples, either shock at modesty or approval of savvy PR. Tsarina smiles, this time without rehearsal. "So granted." She signals. Apprentices appear with ladles the size of canoe paddles and begin portioning broth into wooden cups passed hand to hand across the square. The crowd becomes a living bucket brigade of soup, thousands sipping in synchronized reverence, steam rising like collective exhale. You stand at the cauldron's edge, ladle in hand, spooning destiny into stranger bowls. Each splash feels like a word added to a national diary. Someone hands you a cup. You sip your own story. Brine, incense, nutmeg, frost, and the faint sweetness of a turnip that once wore a crown. It tastes like childhood you never lived, like belonging crafted from vegetables and accidents. When the cauldron empties, bottom revealing only a single bay leaf curled like a green karma, the Tsarina raises her empty cup in salute. The crowd follows. 10,000 cups glint in winter sun. No applause, no cheers, just the soft clink of wood on wood, the sound of agreement closing like a locket. Somewhere inside your chest, the persistent voice finally quiets. This epilogue might actually stay an epilogue. Tsarina descends, procession forming behind her like a sentence ending in period. Before she goes, she presses a small token into your palm, a silver charm shaped like a cabbage leaf, imperial eagle stamped on the back. "For nights when flavor runs thin," she says, voice low. Then she's gone, sable coat disappearing into a sea of fur and frost. The platform clears. Workers begin dismantling boards. Ice sculptures resume melting, history returning to puddles you'll step around for weeks. You descend, pocket the charm, and notice the dog waiting with tail wagging and a wooden spoon in his mouth. Someone's souvenir became his scepter. The mouse, having stowed away in your hood, pops out, squeaks approval. Even the cabbage, or what's left of its legend, seems to purr from beneath your coat, mission accomplished. Square empties, bells resume ordinary tolling, skaters carve casual figure eights that no longer spell destiny. You head home, footprints the only fresh ink on a page now fully written. Behind you, a child scrapes the last frozen shavings of saffron broth from the cauldron, pops them into her mouth and smiles. History continuing in miniature, the way stories do when they think no one is watching. You breathe in cold air that suddenly tastes finished. Ahead, the ISBA waits. Same logs, same draft, same mouse-sized republic. But everything inside it will now smell of imperial soup and completed arcs. You step through the door, close it against winter, and let the quiet settle like fat on broth. The hearth welcomes you with residual glow. The cabbage, leaf-weary, nestles onto the shelf, ready for retirement and possibly seed. You sit, slip the silver charm into a crack in the wall, letting the house adopt one more artifact, and exhale. Plot satisfied, hunger sated, city briefly unified by a single bowl of soup that started with one leaf and ended with 10,000 spoons clinking in gentle, edible applause. Outside, snow begins again, covering footprints, smoothing the stage, tucking Moscow into a fresh page no one has written on. Yet. Inside, you close your eyes, lulled by the soft after hum of history that has finally, mercifully, agreed to let you rest. The hearth settles into a steady soup-scented purr, silver charm glinting from its crack, like a tiny moon on unpaid leave. Outside, fresh snow fills the city's footprints the way a polite librarian closes books nobody asked for. You stretch, joints composing a brief memoir titled Everything Aches But Victory, and decide victory deserves a nap. Straw mat, horsehide, familiar constellation of mouse eyes watching from the rafters. Bedtime has never felt so, epilogue-shaped. But epilogue is a fickle creature in Moscow. Just as your lids begin their slow-motion descent, the door hiccups, 3 soft taps, the rhythm of someone who's read the manual on non-threatening intrusion. You open to a figure swaddled in so many shawls only eyebrows show, and even they look cold. The visitor whispers in Dutch-accented Russian, "Message from Vander Dill, winter market, midnight, bring the leaf." Then she hands you a walnut, because of course clandestine meetings come with snacks. You accept the walnut. She vanishes into the swirl, footprints erased before you can say nutmeg nationalism. Inside, the shell feels warm, suspiciously warm. You crack it open, not nut, but a rolled paper sliver no wider than a dill thread. Micro handwriting, imperial seal forged. Tsarina's chef plots second coup, soup uprising. Cabbage key to both sides. Meet at ice labyrinth. Password, borscht backwards. You read it twice. Brain translating adrenaline into simpler terms, the story's appendix just grew teeth. Midnight is hours away, preparation feels polite. You pack light, 1 spoon badge passport, 1 peppercorn bribe, 1 cabbage celebrity hostage, plus the mouse who insists foreign travel counts toward pension. Dog declines, claims sled union rules, curls on nutmeg crate, already rewriting tomorrow as snooze. You step outside, city smells of cold iron and unfinished sentences. The winter market glimmers on the frozen river, a pop-up constellation of lanterns and gossip. Merchants hawk midnight essentials, heart honey, fur-lined mittens, existential advice 2 kopecks a shot. Somewhere, an ice sculptor chainsaws a life-size bear holding a spoon, either art or propaganda. Hard to tell at this hour. You drift, following the scent of dill and intrigue until you reach the advertised ice labyrinth. Walls 6 feet high, glowworm blue, carved with serpentine paths that promise to confuse even your footprints. At the entrance stands a boy holding a leek like a torch, same kid who saved your hat, now moonlighting as directional produce. You whisper the password, TS, Rob, borscht backwards tastes weird on the tongue. He nods, gestures you inside. Walls close, reflections multiply, suddenly you're a procession of yourself, each copy clutching identical cabbage. Echo of your heartbeat ricochets off ice, sounding like distant drums, or maybe very determined soup. Center of the maze, a small clearing lit by a single lantern dangling from an icicle. Vanda Dill waits, cinnamon beard braided even tighter, eyes flicking like abacuses. Beside him looms a figure you don't expect. Count Raspopov, royal taster, still wearing yesterday's emotional mustache. He bows, which feels like watching 2 exclamation marks curtsy. Dutchman speaks first, voice low. Chef Yevgraf forged imperial requisition to seize remaining nutmeg, blames you, plans midnight raid on your isba to recover contraband. We need living proof of innocence. He nods toward the cabbage. And that, my friend, is a vegetable willing to testify. Raspopov produces a tiny vial distilled truth serum made from fermented bay leaf and confession. 1 drop on the leaf. It recounts every kitchen it ever met. Court listens to talking produce. Precedent established by a prophetic potato in 42. Plan solidifies, confront Yevgraf, dose the cabbage, let it spill chronological borscht, clear your name, prevent civil soup war. Simple, provided nobody develops salad allergies mid-debate. Footsteps crunch, multiple sets moving fast. Lanterns swing, shadows stretch. Yevgraf enters the circle flanked by 4 kitchen knaves wielding rolling pins like cudgels. His face is flushed, not from hearth but from ambition set to rolling boil. Surrender the cabbage, he booms, ladle raised like a scepter. The realm needs flavor. You are but a courier clogging the ladle. Behind him, a scribe copies his threats in real time. Muscovites document everything, especially treason. You consider options. 1 run, labyrinth favors locals. You get lost and probably eaten by metaphor. 2 fight. Your combat experience is limited to arguing with bread. 3 apply truth serum. Let vegetable jurisprudence prevail. You choose 3 because produce has carried you this far. While Dutchman and Raspopov form human parentheses, you uncork vile drip essence onto outer leaf. The cabbage shivers, tiny, almost sacred tremor, then begins to speak. Voice is soft, genderless like wind blowing through library stacks. I sprouted in summer soil kissed by bees, was plucked by a monk who believed leaves understand longing. I rode in coat darkness, brined in secrets, baptized in incense, seasoned with nutmeg and mercy. I have been soup, symbol, and sacrament. I accuse no one, but affirm this courier carried only honesty and herbaceous intent. Speech ends, silence drops, heavy as dumplings. Knaves lower rolling pins, confusion replacing aggression. Chef Yevgraf's face cycles through roux stages, white, blonde, brown. He drops ladle, kneels in snow, confesses, I coveted the nutmeg trade, sought to corner flavor itself. Forgive my over-seasoned ambition. Raspopov signals guards waiting at labyrinth mouth. They escort chef away, rolling pins confiscated as evidence. Scribe closes scroll, already composing headline. Cabbage clears courier, kitchen coop foiled. Dutchman exhales cinnamon clouds of relief. Business partnership intact, he says, shaking your hand with both of his. Raspopov bows, twitches mustache into something resembling gratitude. Should you ever need a taster for vegetable diplomacy, call upon me. He departs, cloak swirling like a properly dramatic exit cue. Labyrinth boys appear with hot mead. You sip, letting warmth chase the last shards of adrenaline. The cabbage relaxes against your chest, leaf still glistening with spent truth, murmuring in vegetable semaphore, mission accomplished, nap now. You exit the ice maze, lanterns dim behind like credits rolling. Market is closing, snow beginning to fall again, erasing paths, conspiracies, and the occasional rolling pin scar. Back at the Isba, dog greets with tail thump, nutmeg crate intact, mouse demanding customs forms for imported mead droplets on your boots. You bank the fire, unwrap the cabbage, set it on its customary chair. It looks smaller, somehow, like a book that knows the last chapter ended. You whisper thanks. A leaf rustles, probably you're welcome, possibly feed me tomorrow. Outside, Moscow sleeps off its intrigue, dreams flavored with nutmeg and absolution. You lie down, horsehide blanket up to chin, and listen. No more midnight coops, no passwords, just wind brushing the door like a proofreader pleased with the final draft. For the first time since the river cracked under your boots, the city feels quiet, finished, if only until sunrise edits it again. Quiet, at last, so complete you can almost hear the mouse counting her tail fur pension. The hearth exhales a final, satisfied crackle. The cabbage glows softly in its chair, leaf edged by ember light like a verdant halo that's misplaced its angel. You drift toward sleep the way snow drifts toward earth, slow, inevitable, beautifully unhurried. But the night isn't finished. It clears its throat with a gentle scrape at the door, not a knock this time, more like a snow brush asking permission. You open to a moon so bright it feels rude, illuminating a single figure. No guards, no Dutchman, just the teen apprentice from the spice shop, now wrapped in an adult-sized coat that swallows him whole. His breath comes in nervous puffs. Message, he whispers, producing a walnut the size of a goose egg. You accept, he vanishes, footprints already healing behind him. Back inside, candlelight. You crack the shell. No paper, instead, a single dried bay leaf curls like a green karma and the faintest clink of something heavier. Tipping the shell releases a silver peppercorn, miniature twin to your original, stamped with a tiny cabbage sigil. A matching set, one for seasoning, one for signature, ownership, currency in the burgeoning vegetable economy. The bay leaf smells of distant kitchens and final chapters. You set both tokens on the table plank. The mouse inspects, whiskers telegraphing promotion approved, then drags the bay leaf toward her nest, retirement bonus negotiated without words. That leaves you, the cabbage, and a peppercorn fit for a Lilliputian Tsar. You pocket it beside the first. They clink softly, coins in a pocket-sized treasury. Sleep tugs again, gentler this time, like a mother who's finally tired of her own lullabies. You settle onto the straw mat, horsehide blanket up to your ears, and let the room blur. Last image, the cabbage, sitting upright, moonlight painting a silver halo on its highest leaf, looking for all the world as though it's keeping watch while you dream. And dream you do, of a summer that never was, green fields humming with bees, soil warm between fingers that aren't cold for once. You're not harvesting, just observing. Sun low, breeze soft, cabbage leaves unfurling like slow applause. In the dream, the plant speaks without words. Remember the beginning, remember the soil. You answer, also wordless, I will, I do. A bee lands on your wrist, refuses to sting, departs like a tiny ambassador confirming peace treaties. Morning arrives the way a cat enters, without announcement but absolute expectation of breakfast. You surface, straw in hair, mouse curled on your chest using the silver peppercorn as pillow. The hearth holds a coal still burning, a red wink that says plot's not done yet, but it's thinking about it. Outside, sled dogs bark somewhere distant, church bells practice their daily throat clearing, and the city smells faintly of cloves left over from yesterday's miracle. You sit up. The cabbage hasn't moved, vegetables are patient that way, but its outer leaf now bears a single dewdrop of, is it sap? Resin, holy snot, whatever it is, it glimmers. You touch it, cool, slightly sticky. A memento, or maybe produce tears for scenes that haven't happened. You wipe it onto your thumb and without thinking, rub it behind your ear like Victory cologne. Immediately the scent of summer field, incense, and distant nutmeg rises around you. Portable nostalgia. Breakfast is humble, yesterday's bread resurrected near the fire, water that's almost tea if you squint. While you chew, the mouse relocates silver peppercorn to a new vault beneath the hearthstone, clearly setting up a central bank. You decide the original peppercorn stays in your pocket. Pears bring balance, and balance is currency when you're paid in spices. Door again, soft, confident. You open to a city elder you've never met, beard white enough to vote twice. He carries no walnut, no scroll, just an empty wooden bowl. The square remembers, he says, voice creaking like well-loved sled runners. We keep a spoonful always for the next story. You understand, yesterday's soup has become today's starter culture. Flavor passed hand to hand, winter to winter, mouth to mouth. You invite him in, he declines the threshold, insists on outdoor tradition. You fetch yesterday's cauldron scrapings, barely a spoonful frozen into a golden disk, thaw it over the fire, pour into his bowl. He bows, sips, tears up exactly the way Raspapov did. Still merciful, he whispers, then offers something back, a single dried clove. For the road ahead, when sweetness runs thin, break this. You accept, it joins the peppercorns in your pocket. Spice collection now a pocket-sized pharmacy for morale. He leaves, footprints the only signature on the snow. You stand a moment, breathing steam clouds that write temporary poetry across the morning. Behind you the cabbage sits, sentinel green against log walls, quietly photosynthesizing memory. Somewhere inside your chest, summer field and frozen square shake hands. The scent behind your ear guarantees they'll stay acquainted. You realize the story has gentled into epilogue that might actually stick. No midnight knocks, no forged seals, just people passing flavor forward like heirloom time. The city will keep simmering, but your part has reduced to a steady, quiet bubble, background note, base layer, foundational warmth. Mouse squeaks, meeting adjourned. Dog yawns approval. You close the door against the cold, settle by the fire, and let the day unfold at the speed of thaw, slow, certain, edible. Outside, bells finish their throat clearing and begin the real business of belonging. Inside, you close your eyes, smelling clove, summer, and the faint, stubborn green of a cabbage that decided history tasted best when shared. The day drowses on like a cat full of cream, and you let it. Noon melts into afternoon. Shadows stretch across the floorboards like long, lazy sentences that can't be bothered with punctuation. You nap, wake, nap again. Sleep layered like blinny, each one warmer than the last. The cabbage dozes on its chair. The mouse uses the silver peppercorn as a paperweight for invisible ledgers. The dog snores gentle nutmeg breezes. Outside, Moscow keeps its own quiet. Sledges glide, bells hum, snowflakes fall with the patience of monks turning pages. Evening tiptoes in, lavender sky, lemon-rind moon. You decide fresh air is required, if only to remind your lungs they're still on the payroll. Coat, hat, cabbage left indoors. It has earned a night off. You step out. Cold kisses your cheeks like a relative who's forgotten your name but remembers affection. The road is a ribbon of white under moonshine, inviting a stroll of absolutely no consequence. You take it. Past neighbors' windows glowing stove gold, past the baker's chimney huffing lazy spirals of rye perfume, past the street orator now retired to humming lullabies to his leek. Everything hushed, padded, peaceful. Even your boots sound polite, squeak, squeak apologies for existing. At the corner, well, you pause, hearing faint music. Someone plucking a balalaika inside a nearby izba, notes stumbling out the door like tipsy dancers. You listen, smiling, until the tune resolves into a lullaby you half remember from a dream about summer bees. Further on, you reach the small chapel where yesterday's incense still clings to the walls like perfume on an old coat. The door stands ajar. Candlelight breathes out. Inside, the priest is sweeping. Slow, meditative strokes, broom whisking more prayer than dust. He notices you, nods, continues. You sit in a back pew, letting the quiet settle on your shoulders like a shawl that fits perfectly. No sermons, no choirs, just the soft whisk of straw on stone and the faint citrus of burnt frankincense. After a while, the priest finishes, leans on his broom. "Came for silence," he asks. You nod. "Good. Silence is soup for the soul, best served warm, sipped slowly." He smiles, retreats through a side door, leaving you alone with candle shadows waltzing across icons. You stay until your heartbeat matches the room's stillness, then leave a clove, the elder's gift, on the windowsill, payment for the rental of peace. Back outside, moon higher, air colder. You turn toward home, but the road offers a detour. The frozen river glints like a silver manuscript, inviting a short encore walk. You obey because detours are epilogues in disguise. Mid-river you stop, boots creaking, and survey the city. Domes, towers, chimneys, all wearing moonlight like matching pajamas. Somewhere a lone bell tolls once, not for time, just for presence. You inhale, the scent behind your ear, summer field, cathedral incense, distant nutmeg, rises to meet the night. A crack zigzags nearby, thin as a hair, loud as a whispered secret. You step over it carefully, mindful of stories that open underfoot. For a moment you imagine the river remembering everything, monks, spies, nutmeg, bay leaves, your footprints walking history in circles. It groans softly, not a threat, more like an old librarian closing the cover, satisfied the tale is complete. You reach the far bank, pause, then turn back. Home is the side where the hearth is, but crossing the river feels like turning a page you've already read. Halfway across you notice something, a small circle of ice ahead, polished smooth as a mirror. Moonlight hits it, reflects upward, creating a faint, ghostly column of light. You stand in it. Your shadow doubles, triples, becomes a quiet aurora around your boots. No science, just winter showing off. You tip your hat to the spectacle because politeness costs nothing and sometimes earns you memories. Back inside the Isba, warmth folds around you like a well-worn blanket that's been waiting for your exact shape. You bank the fire, settle onto the straw mat, and let the night finish its shift. Last conscious thought, the city is a book, the river its spine, and you, marginalia happily scribbled in frost. Sleep arrives without knocking, carrying dreams of candlelight, clove scent, and moon-polished ice. Somewhere inside them, a cabbage leaf flutters once, then settles, satisfied the epilogue is sticking. Morning tiptoes in so politely you almost miss the entrance, just a blush of rose behind frost-clouded glass, and the faint, metallic cough of a neighbor starting his samovar. You surface from sleep the way a dumpling rises, slow, tender, reluctant to leave the broth. The straw mat has memorized your outline. Horsehide blanket peels away like a page that's grown fond of your plot. For a moment you lie still, listening to the house breathe. Timber beams easing, mouse whiskers counting interest on the peppercorn, dog executing a gentle sleep running maneuver after imaginary sledges. No summons knocks, no walnut-bearing couriers. Just the ordinary hush of a city that tasted unity yesterday and today is back to thawing grudges in private saucepans. You sit up, spine offering a polite round of applause, and check the star of the show, the cabbage center stage on its chair, outer leaves curled like a green scroll that's decided retirement suits it. You pat it once, thanks for the memories, and mean it. Breakfast is humble virtue, water pretending to be tea, bread resurrected near the fire until its crust size, and a single clove you break between molars. Sweet, fierce, a sunrise for the tongue. The mouse receives a crumb. The dog gets the faintest smear of nutmeg on his biscuit, pension bonus for yesterday's diplomacy. You eat slowly, letting flavor stretch, letting time feel abundant instead of ambush. When the kettle finally runs out of steam, you step outside. The world has been laundered overnight, snow smooth as unwritten parchment, sky the pale blue of a forget-me-not left in bleach. Your boots punch respectful darts across the page. No urgency, just punctuation for the sake of rhythm. Destination, nowhere specific. Intention, let Moscow speak in lowercase for once. The lane delivers you to the river. It lies frozen, reflective, a mirror that hasn't decided whether to flatter or confess. You walk its edge, listening to the occasional groan beneath. Deep notes from a bassoon section that rarely sees the audience. Somewhere upstream kids are skating figure eights, their laughter echoing like dropped beads. You watch them, hands in pockets, feeling the silver peppercorn and its twin click softly together, coins minted for a currency nobody needs today. A lone fisherman appears, auger in hand, drilling a hole the size of a confession. He nods, offers you the first pull of line. Tradition says whoever catches the inaugural fish receives the river's quiet for a year. You decline. You've already netted enough quiet to last. He shrugs, drops his line, begins the slow negotiation with underwater patience. You walk on, boots keeping time with his silent countdown. Eventually you reach the small rise overlooking the square. Yesterday's platform is gone, dismantled overnight by bureaucratic elves. Only the cauldron remains, upside down in the snow like a discarded bell that has finished ringing history. Someone has planted a single candle beneath it, flame fluttering against the iron, an anonymous votive for whatever got boiled away. You stand there, scent of cold iron and wax mixing into a perfume called epilogue. From this height, you can see the city easing into ordinary life, smoke curling, sledges gliding. A woman shaking rugs off her balcony in slow, rhythmic snaps. Each one a tiny gun saluting the morning. Nothing demands your signature. No walnuts gleam conspiratorially. The bay leaf behind your ear has dried to a crisp whisper. You remove it, crumble it onto the snow, green confetti for a parade that decided to stay home. Retracing steps, you pass the baker's. He's outside cooling sheets of rye on a rack that looks like a wooden hedgehog. Steam rises, carrying the smell of crust and comfort. He offers a hot heel. You accept. It burns your fingers beautifully. Butter, when you spread it, melts like apology accepted. You eat leaning against his wall, watching pedestrians pass in fur-lined ordinary, each carrying invisible ladles of private soup. Back at the Isba, you find the dog has dragged the nutmeg crate to the doorstep, claiming sovereign territory. Inside, the mouse presents you with her latest architectural marvel, a perfect igloo constructed from bread crumbs, centered around the silver peppercorn like a glittering hearth. You commend her civic planning. She demands import tax 1 flake of butter. Paid. Afternoon ambles in, lazy as unfermented dough. You nap again, because why not? And dream of nothing urgent, just fields breeze, the faint clink of 2 peppercorns rolling together like distant dice that have already won. Evening repeats its lavender routine. You stoke the fire, settle with blanket and bread and the last of the almost tea. The cabbage observes from its chair, a retired monarch content to let the kingdom run itself. You consider carving a tiny wooden plaque. Here sat the leaf that fed a city. Instead, you simply say, "Thank you," out loud. The leaf doesn't answer, but the fire pops once, affirmative. Outside, snow begins again. Soft, deliberate, erasing the day's footprints the way a careful writer darts eyes and closes chapters. You watch until eyelids grow heavy, then let the curtain fall. Tomorrow will bring fresh sled tracks, fresh rumors, fresh walnuts if fate feels chatty. But tonight the ledger balances, one city briefly united, one courier lightly seasoned, one cabbage peacefully aging into legend. You close your eyes, hearing only the gentle clink of 2 peppercorns rolling together in your pocket, like tiny bells marking the hour of enough. The longest night of the year tiptoes in, wearing moonlight like slippers too soft to make a sound. You feel it before you see it, a hush so complete the bells forget to argue, a cold so polite it asks permission before nipping your nose. Somewhere beyond the walls, Moscow curls into itself, logs contracting, rivers holding their breath, even the snow too shy to fall. Inside, the hearth dozes, one ember winking like a lazy chaperone. You sit beside it, blanket over shoulders, wooden spoon across your knees, retired sword for retired wars. The cabbage rests on its chair, moonbeam resting on its leaf like a silver bookmark. The mouse and dog have negotiated a joint custody of the peppercorn. They roll it gently between them, a tiny planet orbiting 2 suns of fur. Midnight approaches, sluggish and syrupy. You consider sleep, but the night feels like a page half-turned, waiting for a sentence you haven't written yet. So you step outside, boots laced, coat buttoned, breath already composing small clouds of calligraphy. The street is a photograph left in developer too long, edges soft, contrasts gentle, everything shades of pearl and pewter. You walk toward the river because water, even frozen, keeps the city's secrets better than stone. Each footstep lands with a squeak that apologizes for existing. At the bank, you pause. The ice glows from within, moonlight trapped beneath, shining upward like a reversed sky. A single crack runs straight as a deliberate line of poetry, and you follow it, boots testing resonance. The river groans, but gently, as if clearing its throat before a bedtime story. Mid-river you stop. Around you, the city's domes and towers arrange themselves into a quiet audience. You draw the 2 silver peppercorns from your pocket. They glint like twin stars that got lost and decided to orbit your palm instead. You roll them together. Soft clink, soft roll, creating a tiny music that seems to travel along the crack underfoot. And then you do something unnecessary and perfect. You place 1 peppercorn on the ice. It sits small dark planet against a galaxy of white. The crack beneath widens a hairbreadth. Acceptance. You leave it there, sacrifice to winter, receipt for peace. The other you keep, because stories need souvenirs. Turning back, you notice your footprints have begun to erase themselves, wind brushing snow across like a careful editor. By the time you reach the bank, only the single line of your arrival remains, an ellipsis pointing toward the peppercorn star you left behind. Home again. Inside, warmth folds over you like a well-read sentence. You bank the fire, settle onto the straw mat, and let the quiet finish its shift. Last conscious thought, somewhere under the ice, a tiny silver planet is shining, keeping the river awake with the promise of flavor. Sleep arrives without footsteps, a blanket woven from moonlight and clove. Tomorrow will bring new snow, new steps, new conspiracies perhaps. But tonight the ledger closes, 1 peppercorn given, 1 kept, 1 city gently snoring under the watch of a single season star. And that, for now, is enough. Each breath is slower, the night leans closer, wrapping you in the faint scent of clove and summer fields that lingers behind your ear. You are safe. There is nothing left to do tonight except listen to the gentle crackle of the coal, the soft rustle of a cabbage leaf that has finished telling its tale. Imagine the river outside, its surface sealed with silver, the single peppercorn shining beneath like a tiny star that decided to keep the water awake with promises of flavor. Feel your heartbeat settle into that quiet rhythm, soft clink, soft roll, coins of memory spending themselves into stillness. Let the house breathe around you, timber easing, mouse sighing, dog's tail flicking once against the straw as dreams claim him. The silver charm in the wall catches the last ember's glow and winks, 1 eye open, 1 closed, guarding the threshold between story and sleep. If thoughts wander, guide them gently back to the crack in the river, now healed, to the footprints erased, to the crack in the wall now sealed. Everything complete, everything gentle, everything waiting for morning that will come without urgency, without walnuts, without walnuts. Yes, without walnuts. Breathe in, cool air, faint nutmeg, distant cathedral breath. Breathe out, tension, plot, the day's small aches. Feel the blanket of horsehide settle heavier, warmer, as if the horse itself has decided to guard your dreams. Somewhere, bells count once, twice, then stop, just checking you're still here. Somewhere, snow forgets to fall, content to hover like punctuation that has decided the sentence is already perfect. You are held by timber, by scent, by story that has gently closed its covers. There is nothing to chase, nothing to season, nothing to save. Only the slow, delicious drift toward sleep, toward quiet, toward the gentle silver taste of enough. Sweet dreams.